You know, I think that goes back to the question of 1989 a bit, that what's happened to our society is that after 1889, the reach of our imagination, the reach of our economies exploded across the whole world. And it meant that from our little North European homeland, we suddenly had to cope with all these stories coming from all over the place. And we might not like it, we might wish we could go back to the period of the Cold War when everything was much more certain, but we can't, it's not going to happen. And the artists that are making the videos, I think are very sensitive to that change that's happened in the last 20 years. And they feel that one way to compensate for this fracturing, this fragmentation of our narratives, of our stories, is to try and tell you something over a period of time and give you a clear example. So if you look at a video by Johanna Billing, which is in the exhibition, called Magical World, which brings together a group of young Croatian school kids and an American song called Magical World, and just puts them together and says that this putting together produces something which is magical, which is these kids singing without really knowing what they're saying, this really rather wonderful song in this classical modernist but also socialist or old socialist environment where everything gets mixed: politics, emotion, colonialism, education, people finding their own voice, these young kids, but finding their own voice in a language which isn't theirs. It says so much about the world after '89, that piece, I think. And it has to be a video because in order to say all those things you need to tell a story. And video, moving image, sound and picture together are ways in which we can tell that context of where something comes from. Whereas if you look at the exhibition of Rudy Fuchs, for instance, the stories behind those works are much more known by the audience because they come from North America, Northern Europe. They're stories which we have the background already if we live here. And so before '89, it was a relatively limited field, art, and there were a relatively limited number of stories that artists were building from. And after '89, the stories exploded, the geography exploded, the contexts exploded. And in that moment, you have to try and say, this is what I'm talking about, this is where I'm from, this is what I think. And video is a good way to do that.